Hi, this is Siofra Bradigan, and this is Siofra's Magic Alcove. So, somebody wanted me to do a video about energy healing for beginners. So, here's our attempt to talk about that subject. And I've been trying to think about it because the first time I did any energy healing, I was probably around 4 or so, and it was not anything special in the sense that it was instinctive, and so I could tell that somebody was hurting and where they were hurting, and I kind of put my hands on the spot and I thought at it and tried to make it feel better or asked it to feel better. I'm not sure because it's sort of less verbal conversations in your head when you're that age. And people would feel better when I touched them. I think that that is basically like when a parent, especially a mother, has a child that's injured, it's like the instinct to kiss the boo-boo or make it go away or hug the child and tell them everything's okay. That is at its core a form of energy healing, and so that's like the beginning, early stages of doing it. So if you want to do more than just that, then trying on people that that's what I did first when I started doing it more seriously. I met that healer that was in the flop house in Toronto when I was there, and he was a psychic healer, and that was the first time that I went, there's more to this than just holding people's boo-boos. And he taught me about visualizing the pain as like a light and then pulling the light out of the body. So that's a way of thinking about it, seeing the energy and trying to pull it out of the body and so forth. And it was doing that kind of healing that I discovered it's a bad idea to if you put your hands on someone as an empath and a healer, and you're sort of visualizing being inside of their body where they're hurting, and you're trying to move the pain out of their body, you want to make sure you don't lose contact with them or they don't just up and walk away, which is what happened to me because I didn't know it at the time, but I was basically putting part of my energy, my spirit even, into what I was doing. And when she broke contact and walked away, I hadn't extracted my energy from the process. So there's different stages that you have to be able to go through when you're doing something like that. It's thinking about what you're going to do, attempting to do it, focusing on the energy on the spot, and then retracting yourself and focusing back in your own body. So one of the techniques for doing that is when you're coming back to yourself to state 3 or more things that are different about you and the person you're working on. So I have brown hair, I have long hair, they have short hair, or, I'm a woman, they're a man, whatever. Just come up with some things to identify yourself and identify them to help separate your energies out if you haven't gotten to the point where you're using energy on a regular basis. So, practicing using the energy, one of the things, of course, is you have chakras in your palms, and inside the center of each palm there is a minor chakra that's there. And you can focus on those chakras and push energy into them and start to feel them heating up. It's common, especially in the beginning when you're doing healing work, that your hands will get hot. And that's not a bad thing. Some people think you should be able to get to the point where that doesn't happen, but I don't worry about it. If it happens, I know the energy is there. And, then you have sort of a visceral um, benchmark that you can go by. It's like, yeah, energy's happening. I can feel the heat. So you can practice putting energy into your hands and letting it flow and flow back and forth between your the chakras in your palms and really get that energy flowing. And this all by itself can be a basic energy healing move. So like if you have someone laying on their back, you can put a hand just not touching necessarily, but on either side of the head with the ears. And then you focus on the energy going from one palm to the other and feel a stream of energy going through there. And that will affect like this entire part of the body and start affecting the whole energy field of the person that you're working on. This is a polarity hold. So if you study polarity, this is definitely one of those things. And it's kind of interesting because people will really feel like there's something there, that there's a presence of some kind or a pressure or a heat or, it's like they notice that you're doing something even if you're not physically touching the body. So you can do that kind of a hold on somebody just to kind of balance them out if you're not too advanced yet. And so that is a safe thing to do. You can also, with the same kind of energy thing, you could put your hands over their eyes and just sort of feel the energy coming from that way. And you put your hands under their skull, or one hand under the skull and another hand on the brow, and let the energy move in that direction. Then you can do it on their hands, hold their hands and think of the energy coming down their hands to make sure all those energetic channels are open, and do the same thing on the feet. Another technique in along the same lines is tapping. You can tap those chakras with your fingertips, and that can help activate them for yourself, for the other person. You just sort of get that going, and when you finish tapping, you'll feel like a tingling sensation in the center of your palm, and you can do that in the bottom of the feet. It's very interesting for the person who's getting that done, because all of a sudden it's like tap, tap, tap. It's like right in the curve, the arch of the foot. And you just go tap, tap, tap. And and they're usually quite surprised. So that's another fairly simple one that you can do that will make people feel relaxed, if nothing else. And the idea of someone caring about how you feel, touching you, and using their energy on you and so forth, moving energy with you, through you, for you, that attention in itself can be healing and can help with the body. In fact, after I make this video, I think I'm going to go work on my granddaughter and see if I can help her, because she's still going through a pretty rough time. Another thing that you can do is stroking, where you take your two hands, put it at the top of a limb, say the top of the arm, either arm, or the top of the legs, and with one hand on either side of it, again, you've connected your hands together energetically, and you put them up there, and then you pull the energy down their limb, and when you get to the end of it, just sort of like ground it out. Just sort of pull it down and ground it out. Sometimes I snap, my hands, or rub my hands and kind of go like that. Some people think you don't need to do that, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. I think it's a personal style, or however your energy works. You can have like a bowl of salt if you want to, and let the salt absorb any negative energy that might be exuded between you and the person you're working on. But you don't have to. I mean, if you visualize the energy going down into the earth and going into the ground, with enough practice, that becomes enough, and that makes it easier. Then it doesn't matter whether you have, a bowl of salt nearby, handy, and all that other stuff in order to fix that. Ian and I went to a demonstration of therapeutic touch, the technique, where there's no actual touching that takes place in the official version of it. which I thought was ironic. And the woman who was doing the treatment on the person had him sitting in a chair, and he was sick. I mean, you could tell he was definitely sick. And she was pulling energy down, and then she was throwing it away right in our direction. I was like, we were downwind of this snot filled, energetic, icky stuff flowing all over us. And I'm like, can you not ground that energy? And she's like, well, I do that in my office. She had a bowl of salt, you know. And I'm like, can you not do that? Like, now? I mean, why are you throwing this energetic snot all over us? And sure enough, Ian and I got really sick. So whether it was because she was spraying his germs in our direction or the energy or a combination of both, who knows for sure, but it definitely had an effect on us later. And I wasn't impressed with the therapist because I'm like, if you're working with energy, she's like, oh, this energy is good, nothing can harm you, there's no bad energy and blah blah blah. And I'm like, uh-huh, okay, that's nice. Oh well. And so that was what happened there. And I'm just like, um so one of the first times I got rid of a headache was with my brother. He had a really bad headache. He was sitting in the back of the car. And I had him lay his head on my lap, and I just rubbed his temples really, really soft like that, you know, and just tried to exude relaxation, no pain, and so forth. And he actually fell asleep in my lap, and his headache went away, which was pretty exciting. I kind of liked that. So a lot of it was experimentation. And if you want to work with color, you know, there's all these different theories about what color you put in what place and all that kind of stuff. And basically, I'm like, the body knows what color it needs and where it needs it. The body has got its own intelligence. It wants to get better, so if you give it enough stuff, it can figure out what to do with it, and you can allow any excess to sort of ground out and, you know, be gone and not be built up. So when I want to work with color, I visualize the color of the rainbow because I don't know what color I need. And so I'll do a focused breath in and breathe in the color of the rainbow. And then as I exhale it out through my hands into the person that I'm working on and let the different colors go anywhere in the body that the body wants it to be. And then out the feet and ground. And so you just focus on breathing it in and then breathing it out. And practice that, you know, before you have a person to work on. You can practice breathing in the energy, concentrating it in your lungs, focusing on those points in your palms, and then as you breathe it out, focus on the energy coming out of the palms of your hands and going outward into whatever it is you're putting your energy into. So, and that's if you don't know Reiki or don't know massage or don't know polarity or don't know craniosacral work or any of the other modalities that are out there. Of course, I think that the energy work can become even more powerful and productive when you have a foundation of anatomy, physiology, and techniques of working with a body to start with, and how to make a person feel comfortable and safe when you're working on them. The other thing, though, if you're going to do this kind of work that you really need to remember is you have to take care of yourself. A lot of times people are worried that they're going to take on the illnesses of the person that they're working on, and that's something that is a risk factor, but only if you're not paying attention to how you're doing it. So when you're pulling energy into yourself to put into the person you're working on, you bring it up through your feet, bring it out through the air and into your lungs, and then when you exhale it out into them, it should go into them and then out of them into the floor. So you want to make a circuit. So you have this circuit going where, you know, it comes into you from up in the ground, coming up out of the ground, and then you push it down into the other person, let it travel through their body, and then back into the ground. So you're not bringing in their energy, you're separating your energy from theirs. And the other thing, too, is to try and maintain as much of a sense of um, clarity, I guess, in yourself, and try not to project your own stuff onto them, because it's pretty easy to like project what you think should be wrong on somebody, and then start to see that and work on that, and it's not necessarily as productive as just openness and just doing it, um, and allowing the energy to decide for itself and the person to decide where they need it. I've had a few experiences where the energy was definitely doing something. I had one gentleman who sat in front of me one day whose spine was fusing, uh, and he told me what was going on, and he wanted to try and see if I could unfuse. It was a natural fusing. If I could unfuse it, so I focused on that and on the energy, and you could actually hear his vertebrae snapping as I did it. And he decided that that was a bad idea, and so he didn't want to do that again, because there would be a stage that he would go through where he would be weakened and vulnerable because suddenly things aren't, locked in like they had been. And then I had another friend of mine who wanted me to work on his thyroid because he thought what he had was an underactive thyroid. He had a lot of weight issues. And so I did. I focused a lot of heat and energy around the thyroid gland, and focused on that goal. And I think he sat on the toilet for like 10 hours straight going to the bathroom and broke his toilet. He decided not to let me do that again. So I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. That's what you asked me to do. That's what I did. And it apparently worked. So you have to be a little bit cautious as you're trying to figure out how you work, and how other people work, and how your energy is going to affect them, and how just because you want to heal someone doesn't mean they're going to be healed. That's another thing that's difficult in energy work, all in all, is because sometimes there's some karmic thing happening that you are not privy to, or there's a psychological, emotional undercurrent to the thing that's happening that you're also not privy to. And, all you can do is offer it, try and be as universal with it as you can, and allow it to take place. And if it's rejected, don't take it personally. It's not your fault. Not everybody can do this anyway, but that's at the least, I think that everyone can give comfort to someone who is scared, or in pain. At least they know that someone cares about them. I'm trying to think of other ways of approaching this that would be simplified for beginners, because I did a whole video on doing the energy work and the chakras, and looking at the chakras and trying to keep things in balance. That's one of the things. If you're trying to do an energetic read on somebody passively and just sort of see what comes up, you're looking for cold spots and hot spots, things that feel weird, that just something seems wrong, and then you try and determine what does that mean. And for me, a lot of times the hot spots are like places that were injured and that are healing. Cold spots are places that lack energy and need more. Yeah, it's definitely a process that you have to go through of experimentation, and that's why you work on friends, because you don't want to go out there and put up a shingle and says psychic healer, come on by, and get some healing done. And like everything else, you never want to dissuade someone from going to see a doctor, because there are certain things that we're not going to pick up and we may not know that's happening. And if a person is just seeking energy healing and nothing else, and they have like an appendix that's about ready to burst, or a gallbladder that's not functioning properly, or any number of things, or cancer forming somewhere, without certain kinds of Western medical tests, they're not going to know that that's happening. So it's like it's an adjunct to other forms of healing. That's the thing about all of this. It's like it's not one thing replaces everything else. It just sort of accompanies and adds to what's happening. It helps someone to be stronger in their focus and concentration in order to like keep on going, or to figure out what they really need, to get the information to come to them some way so that they know what to do, because there's a lot of decisions sometimes that needs to be made. And I was doing some energy type healing at a fair one day, and there was a woman who came up that I knew, and she asked me to work on her. And just getting someone to relax in itself can be a huge thing. I'd like pick up her arm and her arm would stay in place. It's like, that's not relaxed. That's relaxed. It's like, you want to, I just spent, I think, 20 to 30 minutes just lifting up an arm and telling her to let go. And then, no, you're not letting go. And doing it over and over again until she finally actually relaxed. And I didn't think I got much done. I mean, I got her arm to relax. She was astonished. She felt like she'd never been that relaxed in her entire life. She was very happy about what I did. I was like, okay, I'm so happy for you. Don't understand it, but that's because she was in an abusive relationship and she was always holding her body like this. She was always tense. And to allow her to let go, even for a few seconds, apparently was a huge deal. So, let me think. Do a lot of reading, watch other people doing it, get healings done by people who do it so you can feel what it's like. Some people work with spirits, some don't. The woman up in Vancouver that I went to see the first time I got a psychic healing, she could see and sense the spirits that were around me, which was way cool. And then a year later, she recognized me by the spirits I brought with me, which was even more cool that she remembered me, especially since she saw a lot of people. She had a lot of word of mouth, and a lot of people would come and go. As far as charging for such services, depends on how you feel about it. I mean, I charge in my office. I'm a massage therapist. I have a license. I have to maintain. I have I have to continue in education that I have to do throughout the year and so forth. And I have like a straight fee no matter what I'm doing in my office, and I charge $75 an hour for a massage. And in it, I do healing, energy healing, physical healing, all the different techniques that I know. I have a lot of eggs in my basket. So I encourage people to take classes of all kinds of things, because you never know when something will suddenly click with someone you're working on and be the thing. Learning how to unwind someone's body, which is a very passive and gentle thing to do, where you just hold a part of the body and just allow it to start moving. And you don't try and make it move, it kind of moves on its own, which is way cool and difficult to explain. It's a with the pulling energy down someone's arm or leg. If you're really focusing on it, sometimes you'll discover that your hands will kind of stick to someone's skin, even through clothing. You can feel it'll get sticky. That's sticky chi, which means the energy is not moving through that limb, and so that means you need to do it until it stops. So you just keep on pulling the energy down until there's no longer any sticking, and that can actually be so intense and severe. I had a woman who had nerve damage in her neck, and she came in because her legs weren't working still, because the nerves heal slowly, and the farther away the damage from the nerve is, the longer it takes the ability to return. And since the nerve was way up at the base of her spine, or the base of her skull kind of thing, then the one that went down to her foot that still wasn't working was the last one to come back, as it were. And when I went down her leg, I literally got stuck. I mean, I couldn't move. My hands were physically stuck to her skin. I actually had to brace myself and pull really hard. And it sounded like, well, it squeals. The skin becomes like rubber and it squeals. I don't know how to explain that, but that's what it happens every time when it's sticky. It's like it makes this squeaking, rubbery sound when you're pulling on it. So if that happens, don't panic. It's normal. That's why I'm telling you. That's something that definitely can happen. And you just keep pulling and pulling and pulling, going from the top to the out, so the top of the leg to the feet, the upper arm to the hand, whatever it is. And you just keep doing it until it suddenly is easy and it's just like touching skin. It's not like stuck skin and you can't move it. It's like easy to move because there's no longer any energy, I don't know, burrs just grabbing onto you as you go by. And I don't think that you need to have any real training, like as a massage therapist or anything like that, to do that. It's a non-oil, technique, so it's not like it requires training in the traditional sense of things. So that's something you can also practice on each other. Practice trying it out and see what happens. Practice it on different people. See who's willing. And I'll tell you, if when I was going to massage school, I had no end of volunteers willing to get on the table and let me practice on them. And I think it's not dissimilar to doing energy work. If you volunteer to work on somebody and try and make them feel better, make their headache go away, they're all on board. Unless they're afraid of energy work and they think you're from Satan, which is a different issue altogether. Which is ironic. But so that would be another thing that you could practice and you could do. And you really have to be paying attention and being in your hands and in the energy when you do it to feel it. My grandson, I worked on him once and he had really super sticky chi on his legs. And I thought, I can show this to my daughter. So I told her to go down his legs. And she just went, whoop, like nothing was there. So I put my hands on top of hers and she stuck. So I discovered at that point that I could transmit my experience by putting my hands on someone else's hands so that they would feel what I sensed, which was very interesting. It came in handy when I was teaching at the massage school for a couple years and trying to teach some of the more subtle techniques that I like to use. So certainly meditating on yourself, working with your own energy, breathing, practicing moving energy through your body with breathing, practicing increasing the energy in your palms and opening up that chakra, practicing putting energy back and forth and so forth with your hands, getting heat happening in your hands. These are indicators that will tell you that you're on the right track. So I think it's about all I can think of right now. But that should be a few extra things than what we talked about in the first video. So maybe that'll give you more ideas of how to approach this as a modality to, get your teeth into and get a few more skills that you can hone as you go along. Okay, so I guess that's probably it for this one. So this is Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. Blessed be.